Why is liberal education important in 2019?
Liberal education is important today, I think, primarily because it forces you to think about the world in a wide variety of ways. So when you take courses in the liberal arts, you're learning about fields like history or biology, but more importantly, you're learning to think like a historian or learning to think like a scientist. Those are very different ways of thinking. What that training does is it forces you to be flexible, it forces you to be malleable in your thinking. And when you head out into the professional realm, those are the types of skills that employers are currently looking for right now. So in that way, a liberal arts education really prepares you for your work life after college.
This year's common reading is Factfulness. What was your initial response to reading this book?
My initial response was that I was pretty intimidated because I opened the book and there were lots of graphs, there were lots of numbers, and I'm not a numbers person at all. So I went into the book thinking there's going to be a lot here that I don't understand. When I got further into the book, one of the things that really appealed to me is the way that Hans Rosling is able to take those numbers, take that numerical data, and actually turn it into a really compelling story. So he's able to not only interpret those numbers for someone who doesn't have a background in statistics or data, but he's also able to tell this larger story about the way that the world is changing, and in his mind is getting better, but the way that the world is changing in a way that by the end, for me, someone who's not a numbers person, I came away saying, boy, the story here is really compelling. And the data that Rosling uses to tell that story is also really compelling.
Factfulness is a provocative title. Can you speak to this title?
It is a provocative title, I think, especially now. We live in an era that a lot of people call post-factual or post-truth era. And Rosling, with his title, I think is saying a couple things. Number one, he's saying, first and foremost, it's really important for us as human beings to look at reality in a factual, truthful way. That is, to look at the things that are happening in reality and not say, how do they fit into the way that I already think about the world, but in what way do I need to change my way of thinking to match the facts as they are on the ground. The other thing about the title that I find really intriguing is that I don't think that Rosling is using this book to dictate reality to us. One of the big lessons that I took away from Factfulness is that Rosling says, here are the numbers. And what we need to learn to do as human beings, as global citizens, is to learn how to critically think about those numbers and to critically think about that information. So he's not saying, here are the facts as I see them, as much as he's saying, here are a bunch of numbers. Let me teach you ways to critically think about those numbers so that you can become a really solid interpreter of those facts yourself, which is really one of the things that I think college and liberal education is also training people how to do, which is why I think this book is such an effective choice this year.
Thank you, Professor Jauchen.